Next up, we have Noah Feehan, who told me his friend Frederick just a few minutes ago. He also put a new project up on Hackaday.io last night. It's a vibratory board, and badge hacking will be after Noah's talk. Please welcome Noah.
Thank you. Should I take this? I have this. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Then it'll show up there. Sweet. Thank you. Hi. It's such an amazing honor to be here. I really feel like this is my sort of kindred community. I've been reading Hackaday for years and years. I see some of my actual real-life heroes in the audience. And so I wanted to talk about the way I'm trying to be a little more like my heroes. People like Ben Krasno, Evil Mad Scientist Laboratories, Becky Stern, Adafruit, and SparkFun. These are people who, or entities that are alive today and are actually making things that make the world and make emerging technology more accessible, understandable, and available to everybody. I'm going to go through, my talk is in two parts. I guess I should click the slide here and say about me. The first part is just going to be going through a bit of strong opinions I have that I've sort of developed over the last 10 years. My training is as a sort of critical artist and a critical engineer. For the last decade, I've been doing consulting or engineering or artworks for money and for fun. I chose this photo because this is actually the first Fablab ever set up at NASA. This is the most government money I've ever been able to spend. And the photo is really blurry and surreptitious because I learned during the taking of this photo that photography was not allowed because it's in the middle of a massive CNC machine factory at the Goddard Space Flight Facility. So surreptitious photo. This is me 10 years ago. This is one of the first things I made that became publicly available. Someone from a blog picked this up from my Flickr feed. These are Hulk hands that I outfitted for MIDI. I did a lot of electronic interactive media performance, and so part of the act at this point was hooking these up to a dope drum machine and punching out a beat. So this is actually one of the first projects of mine that was publicly seen. And the Flickr photo set was a far cry from the documentation I see and expect and admire in the world now. And that's going to be the second part of the talk, is ways I'm trying to emulate the documentation I like most in the world. But for me, I'm going to talk a little bit of shop. I'm actually just going to show the storage solutions that I like the most. And that I assert are the canonically best storage solutions. So when I make a project, particularly if you do this even on the side for money, it's really important to be able to sort of get the right tool quickly, to understand what your inventory is, to have a well-organized shop. And I'm not somebody who naturally organizes, but over time, I've come to really appreciate the sort of flow, the additional serenity you can feel if you really do know your inventory well. And so I like to organize these containers by two metrics. One is spectrum. So this is all my wireless equipment shows up in one bin. I know that you might think you should split out into BLE and Wi-Fi and ham radio or SDR stuff. It's all small enough to fit in one bin, and it's a transparent bin. So I generally really, I much appreciate, I guess if I go two back, you can see there's also thermal down there, audio, inductive coils, and circle-shaped things, optical and photo. So I organize by spectrum, and this is sensors and actuators can be grouped together. This just happens to be the way that I think of sort of features or functions I might want to add to a project. So being able to really quickly get to the band, the spectrum I'm trying to address is generally a nice way to avoid sort of losing 10 minutes, losing even 2 minutes searching in your own shop for something, which always feels a little crazy. The second way I organize objects is by sort of spendability. So if I have things that I expect permanently to embed in a place, so connectors that I will permanently embed somewhere are different than connectors that I might reuse. They're also sort of grouped by amperage or grouped by the sort of durability of connections. So I'll keep my waterproof or my IP66 connectors in a different place than my jumpers. But again, that's because really when I'm looking for a part, I'm not thinking about the part number, the name, or anything like that. I'm thinking of what part of the world I'm trying to address. Is this a fixturing? Is this an interface between inside and outside? Is this something that I'm going to embed permanently in a project or not? And so this is the best one to buy. This is the sort of 2x width one. I'll post these on my Twitter. I have links to these as well. This is the 1x one. I like these because they're washable, they're reusable. This is about $2 per box. They stack, they're modular. You can stack like 6 or 7 of them, even if they're heavy, and they won't topple over. And so that's what I use. You've seen them in the wire shelving as well. I've seen a lot of wire shelving in people's shop photos here. I quite like that as well. This is great. This container, this is the result of quite a long search for something that is compact, but that also I can take these bins out of. So if I'm soldering, I can take one of these bins out that has my micro switches or my limit switches or whatever, and put that on the desk with me. Close up this box. Again, a transparent top is really useful just so you can visually see inventory without having to read or write labels. And it's also super cheap. So this is where I keep all of my sort of finger-sized or smaller items. And in terms of how I organize the actual things I'm working on, I really try to be unafraid to have excess storage capacity. If something seems like it might be something even I'll return one time to, if it's not something I'm making in one shot, I'll give it a bin. And this leads to the corollary about storage containers, which is that it is always helpful to have 30% empty storage containers. I live by this rule. It is worth the money, particularly with these cheap bins. If you have excess capacity, that makes it so much easier to make a new bin for something, to make a bin for a project that even, again, might seem like a one-off or a sort of flutter. So if it seems like it might be a thing you'll come back to, give it its own bin and put all the parts in that bin. Pick out the right resistor values, put a couple extra in there, and really just have this one box that you can take out and work on the project without having to search around a lot. And I know this might sound super OCD, but if you're really distractible, or if you're doing this very late at night, it really pays to just have these systems in place that really lower the friction to creating. And speaking of distractible, I'm guilty more and more of sometimes having my focus diffuse. And so I realized that if I don't know, if I can't answer the question, where is my next actual dopamine release in a project coming from, I lose it. I don't come back to that project. I have a laser galvanometer project. It was open loop, and it's lost in the wilderness now. I have no idea what it would take for that to yield any sort of a win. And here you have to be generous with yourself. Even, I've set up stepper motors many times. Getting a stepper motor spinning is still fun to me. I'm still willing to call, hooking up the OLED to the Arduino to the stepper. That's still a win to me. I should be beyond such small thrills, but the fact is that I still really get a kick out of these things, and if I know myself, if I know how I can engineer a project, how I can decompose a really daunting thing like fix this really crap laser cutter, how I can decompose that into a little bit of a win, that's something that gets me dopamine within 3 days, then I know no matter how long or daunting the project is, I can see it through. Knowing how to finish a project is also something that I'm trying to get better at. I certainly wasn't very good at this 10 years ago. Now I try to figure out, maybe in one sentence, exactly what it will take for me to be satisfied in this particular creative or engineering inquiry. So if I can figure out, well, once I am able to, for example, peer directly through the thermal sensor and see what it sees, that will be enough for me. Phrasing the problem like that really helps me avoid yak shaving. I figured we would know that term, okay? It helps me avoid sort of getting lost in the woods or adding or succumbing to feature creep. So really try and have one sentence that sort of expresses exactly what you would like to have happen with the time you're spending on a project. And that to me is really helpful. And that gets into the last of the first section, which is how I organize my time. I try to be really generous with myself because at least I'm not watching the Kardashians. So even puttering around on Sunday morning and sweeping the shop, even something like labeling a bin that I really know what's in it, but I put a label on it like wireless, something really obvious, even that counts. Even that, I've trained myself to recognize that there is a little bit of dopamine there. There's a little bit of sort of spatial hygiene there. Oh, and that's my puttering slide, sorry. And I'll go back to say, if you're doing this at all for money, maybe you're helping an artist get an installation ready, maybe you're trying to start a hardware startup or whatnot. As soon as you start a project, as soon as the bin is opened, make a Google Doc and just write down the times. I know that there's a million time tracking apps, but a Google Doc is a really central place for me to go back and audit my time, and this really helps me get better at estimating. I'm guilty of being, I think, 5x off with the NASA Fablab on how much time I thought it would take to get up and running. And so the more you just have these little habits that you sort of pay yourself in dopamine to adopt, thank you, the more you have that, the more you can get better more quickly. And then you'll start recognizing when you have these moments of flow. And you'll do a thing like put together a whole project over one Sunday and realize like, damn, last year I would have gotten totally sidetracked with The Simpsons doing that. Or I would have found something else to do, or I would have rewarded myself too early. So really being able to be able to structure and recognize the rewards you set up for yourself helps you keep going, particularly if you struggle with depression or ADD or other things that might keep you from being as productive as you are sometimes. Being able to normalize that productivity is really something you can do for yourself that I think is worth thinking about. So this next section, I'm going to go through a couple of projects of mine that are both successes and failures. They're successes because they totally exist and they're in this presentation, and they're failures because not one of you has made these things. Not to point a finger, but clearly something that would be the next step for me, something that was really wonderful about the Hackaday Prize last year was realizing that I'm with this wonderful community that I can actually address on equal terms. I actually could I could hope that one of you would try and make a thing. So Fixture is an installation I made last year. This is actually just in my house, but I still make critical art objects, and this was just a way to try and think about the sort of easy surrogacy with which my phone is allowed to replace my presence. Google thinks that where my mobile is where I am, and they're right almost all the time. Fitbit sort of surrogates accelerometer activity to my activity, but you've seen it thrown in the Home Depot paint shakers and used to sort of spoof itself. So I wanted to try to make a really taut line between exactly where my phone was and some display in my house. So this is really just a continuous mapping between my phone's accelerometer values. X maps to R, Y maps to G, Z maps to B. There's just a really simple, a linear interpolation going on. And then those 60 LEDs represent 1 minute in the past for 60 minutes. So I hope this auto plays. Maybe? Maybe that? Okay, so here you can see my phone going through a bunch of different postures. So you can see times of day when I'm walking, times of day when I sit still for a long time, but already I did it, right? I metonymized. I made my phone a surrogate for my own presence. And so I wanted to have this installation around just to sort of pluck that wire between where I am, where my phone is, and what we're seeing on the display. This project is all on GitHub, and I wouldn't blame you for not trying to implement it because you have to want to write your own server, you have to want to write your own Android app, you have to want to deal with the V0 of Spark Core, which is what this runs on, which was much rougher than Particle. And so I think that what I learned from this and what I learned from the sort of non-adaptation of this is that it's really a wide scope for kind of a niche purpose. It really is, answering a pretty esoteric critical question of my own, and also really broad spectrum making. So you have to really want to do a full stack thing by yourself to be able to look into this. And I learned that even harder last year. I was lucky enough to be one of the Hackaday Prize semifinalists with my thermal camera that was Bluetooth 4 enabled. So this was this project where I really just wanted to see through another sensor's eyes. And this sensor, this beautiful rectangular thing by Panasonic called Grid Eye, is $40 on DigiKey, and it was a relatively easy thing to put together. It's just some passives and an Arduino and an OLED screen on the back. And this also isn't really reproducible. What I learned, so it was amazing to have the sort of Hackaday audience look to something I had made, and the pressure was really on to make something that everyone could reproduce, and I really failed in that regard because it took me 3 tries to get this sensor mailed to me. It's still covered under ITAR, and I didn't quite understand the forms I was filling out when you asked to buy it from DigiKey, so I kept, under occupation, I kept angrily writing US citizen, and eventually I had to sort of, you know, use my day job as like cover to get this sensor, and so I realized midway through the contest, nobody can get this thing without like kind of gaming the system a little bit. I think it's a little better now, I'm not sure. And the other side of it was that I talked before about scoping the project or having a sentence that describes when you'll be satisfied. I kind of got satisfied before I did the heavy graphics Android app that displays the BLE info, so I never made that. And a lot of people still, you know, I'll get the emails that they're following the project now. I'm real sorry, guys. It's not going to happen. I don't like Android very much. And I'm certainly not good at graphics, so there's not a lot of dopamine left there. But hey, it's all open source. You should, you know, contribute to the project. I'm going to skip by this one. This was like a super niche jog dial, a one-axis stepper controller to help focus my laser. I learned much more from this project, which I completed and have been making a bunch of. This is a simple Qi charger. I really like wireless charging. It's one of the best sort of improvements in mobile phone technology in the last 5 years. It's kind of underhyped. Someone very kind asked me to write this up for a blog post, and that would be really cool. I would love to, you know, I sort of got excited and wrote 7 verbose pages of documentation, and I took 20 gigabytes of photos, and I didn't check them. And they're garbage. So I have these messy photos of me way in the back of my shop. A lot of them are out of focus, and it's really not clear, even though I did the thing, right? I had 3 cameras on me for the entire weekend that I was building 2 of these. I wasn't checking my shots, and I hadn't, for example, made a storyboard of the story I want to tell of the building. So the thing I learned from this is I really think in my future projects, I will try to just have verbs. I just want to have a photo showing very unambiguously, very cleanly, very close up, exactly what verb to do next to finish the project or to get to the next step. I didn't publish these 20 gigs of photos for obvious reasons, but I'll happily show you them if you want. And I'm just going to end on a project I just released last night. And this actually dovetails really well with the awesome haptics talk we just heard. I've been really interested in electrovibration. This is a way to use a low current, high voltage signal to dynamically change the apparent texture of a flat surface. Which sounds crazy and is a feeling I've never felt before. I read all the Disney research papers that come out because they're awesome, and there were 2 really frustrating papers that described this totally magic new feeling in the world, and then didn't really go through the implementation of such a feeling in very much detail. They had a photo of the board that I have now blown up and printed out like a bunch of times, and so I spent a little time trying to reverse engineer this because I thought this is a place where I can make a contribution and maybe add a new sort of haptic sensing to the general Hackaday vocabulary. So I'm trying very hard with this project, which I released last night. Go check it out. I'm trying very hard to make this project much more accessible and actually implementable. And it'll be the greatest thing of my 2015 if I saw any extras of these in the wild. So on the left, you can see the first board that I made. The idea is to turn this pot to change the apparent frequency. This is where the texture sort of changes. I brought one so you can try it out. It's a little subtle because I really need help with the current sensing feedback part. And so Hackaday, come to my rescue. But already it's a pretty weird sensation. You can get it to go from sort of sticky to sort of waxy to sort of sandpapery, and I know I'm really selling it now, but it's really quite an uncanny and interesting feeling, and I think is an interesting counterpoint to pretty battery-heavy haptic vibration strategies. This is just a way to sort of change the texture in a more passive way, so you can sort of pull instead of be notified. This is the second version of the board. This is Bluetooth 4 enabled, and there really is an app. You can totally download an Android app and address this. This is much smaller and is made to be embedded. But that's kind of the trajectory I wanted to go through. I wanted to start some arguments about my opinions about containers and how I organize projects, and then I wanted to really try to start giving back to the community from which I've gotten so much. So thank you very much for listening, and I'd love to talk further over there. Thank you.